Have you ever looked back at a relationship and asked yourself, how did I end up here? You loved God, you tried to do the right thing, you forgave, you gave grace, you stayed longer than you probably should have, and somehow you still ended up in a toxic relationship. For many Christian women, that creates a really confusing question. I know it did for me. And that was, did I misunderstand the Bible? What if the problem isn't that you misunderstood scripture? What if the real problem is that you were only taught to apply some of it? Because something I've learned in my life is this: toxic relationships don't just hurt you, they delay your purpose. That is the biggest cost of toxic relationships. They delay your purpose. And in this video, I am going to explain why Christian women often end up in toxic relationships, how church culture can unintentionally contribute to that pattern, and the biblical wisdom to get to your purpose. Welcome back to the channel. And if you're new here, welcome. I'm really glad you're here. My name is Shonda Nicole. I am a certified life coach. And on this channel, I help women look at the pain they've experienced in toxic relationships and begin to uncover the deeper purpose that God placed inside of them. Because one of the things I've seen over and over again in my own life and in the lives of other women is that when you're stuck surviving toxic relationships, you often aren't able to fully walk in what God actually created you to do. So, part of healing is understanding how we ended up in those relationships in the first place. One of the most painful questions women ask after a toxic relationship ends is this: how did I get here? Especially when you're a woman of faith, because you try to do things the right way. You tried to forgive, you tried to be patient, you tried to be kind, you tried to be the kind of woman the Bible talks about, right? So when the relationship becomes toxic, it creates a lot of confusion. And you start asking questions like, was I too forgiving? Did I stay too long? Did I misunderstand what the Bible teaches? But for many Christian women, the real issue isn't misunderstanding scripture. It's something else entirely. Many women who grow up in church are taught some very beautiful biblical principles, things like forgive and turn the other cheek and submit and be gentle and keep the peace. And those things are absolutely biblical. But here's where the problem can happen. Most women aren't taught those principles, or they are taught those principles without the balancing wisdom that goes with them. So what happens is women learn how to be nice, but they are never taught how to be truly kind. And those two things are very different. You see, niceness avoids conflict, but kindness will tell the truth when something is wrong. Niceness keeps everybody comfortable, but true kindness operates in wisdom and truth, even if it's uncomfortable. And when someone is nice without boundaries, it can make them extremely vulnerable and open to manipulation. So let me ask you something. Have you ever stayed in a relationship longer than you should have? Because I bet that's why you're here. You thought that leaving meant you weren't being a good Christian. A lot of women have. I did that too. But there is another layer to this, and it's something that exists both in church culture and also in our broader culture. Women are often conditioned to believe that their primary job in life is to be chosen by a man. So we learn things like cook well, keep a nice home, be supportive, don't be difficult, don't be too opinionated, goodness knows, be easy to get along with. And that message becomes, if you perform well, you will be chosen. So instead of evaluating the person we're dating, we're focused on earning their approval. And that is exactly what I fell into. And there was one red flag while we were dating that I completely missed. At the time, it didn't seem like a big deal, but later I realized it revealed everything about who he really was. But I'll come back to that in a minute. When I look back at my last marriage now, I can see very clearly what was happening. While we were dating, I was overperforming. I was doing everything I could to make sure he chose me. I would cook meals for him on the weekend and pack them up so he'd have enough food for the entire week. I would rearrange my schedule to go to doctor's appointments with him. I would stay up late talking when I should have been sleeping. I skipped workouts. I skipped lunch breaks. My entire routine started revolving around making sure he felt supported. And at the time, I thought I was just being a good partner. But looking back now, I can see something clearly. I wasn't just being supportive, I had no boundaries. Now, let me get back to the red flag that I mentioned earlier. And that was something about his stories that I didn't notice at the time. Every story he told me about his past had the same pattern. Nothing was ever his fault. Problems with his job, his boss misunderstood him. Problems with coworkers, they were just picking on him. Problems with his previous marriage, his ex wife mistreated him. In every story, he was always the victim. And because I was empathetic, I believed him. But here's something I've learned since then: when someone never takes responsibility for anything in their life, eventually you're going to be the next person they blame. But the moment that really woke me up didn't happen till a little bit later, and it came through something surprisingly simple: this, my hair. When we first met, I used to straighten my hair, but as you can see, my hair is naturally curly. He started telling me that women should wear their natural hair and be proud of it. So I stopped straightening my hair and started wearing it curly. And honestly, I started to like it. I still wear it curly. But then something changed. He started suggesting that I would look really good with dreadlocks. And over time, because I wanted to make him happy, I did it. But deep down, that style wasn't really me. Eventually, I decided I was going to take them out, go back to something that actually felt like me again. And if you've ever taken out dreadlocks, you know that process takes hours, if not days. So you're sitting there with the conditioner, unraveling strand after strand. And while I was doing that, I started realizing something: that little by little, I had allowed him to reshape my identity, how I looked, how I expressed myself, what I thought looked good. And as I sat there unraveling those locks, it hit me: I had slowly stopped being myself. And I wonder how many women watching this have had that moment. Maybe it wasn't your hair, maybe it was something else. But one day you looked in the mirror and you thought, when did I stop being me? If that resonates with you, I would love to know about it in the comments. What was that moment for you when you realized that you stopped being yourself, that you were slowly losing yourself? When I started reflecting on everything that happened, I realized something important. I had been taught a lot about being gentle, but I had never been taught how to balance that with discernment. You know, there's a verse in Matthew 10:16. It's one of my favorite verses where Jesus says, "Be wise as serpents and harmless as doves." Growing up in church, I heard a lot about being harmless as doves. Be kind, be forgiving, be gentle. but I don't remember hearing much teaching about the other half, the be wise as serpents part. The Bible also says in Proverbs 4:23 to guard your heart. And in 1 John 4:1, it says to test the spirit by the spirit. See, discernment is not judgment. And in this society, being judgmental has such a negative connotation. But discernment is actually biblical wisdom. When you study the life of Jesus, something becomes very clear. Yes, he was compassionate. Yes, he was loving, but he also had boundaries. There were times when crowds wanted his attention and he withdrew to pray. There were times when religious leaders tried to trap him and he confronted them directly. And there was even a moment when, you know the story, he walked into the temple and he drove out the money changers. See, Jesus embodied both sides of Matthew 10:16, the gentleness and the wisdom. And Christian women need both. We need to be wise as serpents and gentle as doves. So if you've ever asked yourself, how did I end up in a toxic relationship? It might not be because you misunderstood the Bible. It may simply be that you were never taught about how to apply both sides together. You were taught how to forgive, but not taught how to guard your heart. You were taught how to be nice, but not how to be truly kind, meaning you'll do the hard thing, you'll tell the hard truth, even if it hurts. And see, when those pieces are missing, it can lead to years of painful relationships. But once you understand the pattern, you begin to change it. And if you missed last week's video where I talked about the real cost of toxic relationships and what that can do to your life and your purpose, make sure you go back and you watch that next. Now, next week's video, the next video in this series, I'm going to get into explaining the personality trait that quietly puts many women into these situations in the first place. So be sure you subscribe so you don't miss that video, and I will see you over there. God bless you. He loves you. I love you. And I pray that you'll take care of yourself. Until the next time. Bye, guys.